The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is by no means a perfect game. However, it's the best role-playing game I've played in my entire life as a video game fanatic. Just how did The Witcher 3 manage to win over one of the pickiest role-playing game fans in history? Let's take a look at how The Witcher 3 suits different types of gamers to determine exactly that. For my bookworms, The Witcher 3 has always managed to tell a compelling, if slightly long-winded story. In The Witcher 3, Geralt, our aging yet still swashbucklingly precocious Witcher, is searching for the two loves of his life, the royal sorceress Yennefer and his ward/daughter, Ciri. Witcher 3's designers very smartly split the story's telling into three separate vehicles. First, the main quest storyline, told by completing the quests necessary to finish the game. Second, the side quest storyline, told through completing side quests such as Witcher hunts and adventures to help people across the game's many locales. And third, the overreaching narrative, told by the world and its people as you explore and interact with both. As strange would have it, the quality of The Witcher 3's story goes in reverse order. The brutal yet beautiful aesthetics of the game's world tell the player a more gripping tale than does any of the game's dialogue or cutscenes. Likewise, The Witcher 3's side quest narratives are much more enjoyable than most of the main story. And although I prefer more subtle storytelling with minimal, if any, dialogue or cutscenes, rest assured that The Witcher 3's story packs a heavy quality punch, regardless of which of these three vehicles you may prefer. Just keep in mind that if you, like I, prefer environmental narrative over copious amounts of exposition, the sheer amount of dialogue in the game will begin to exhaust you before the end of the experience. For my action junkies, The Witcher 3's combat system is by far the best role-playing game combat system I've ever played. It crushes the parochial and overly simplified systems found in the Elder Scrolls and other derivative action RPGs. The Witcher 3 is able to do this by requiring the player to attack and defend in a skillful manner that must adjust to the different types of enemies. However, I don't want you thinking The Witcher 3's combat is perfect. I'd argue that the system requires too much player input, and to make matters worse, Witcher 3 employs slippery control mechanics similar to those found in Grand Theft Auto 5. These controls hold traversal and combat back from the nirvana that they're trying to reach. Battle shines when the player finds herself quickly shifting between swordplay, high-powered magic attacks, and defending herself from enemy counterattacks. But battle wanes when the player has to first access the time-slowing mini-menu to change spells, or second, manage the clumsy crossbow controls, or third, having to tediously surf through their inventory before a battle to apply the proper blade oils to match the given type of enemy combatant. The word tedium sums up this aspect of The Witcher 3's action well. Automating oil application and assigning spells to specific gamepad buttons could have solved some of this, although I imagine PC players don't really have to deal with this much at all. All in all, The Witcher 3's combat can be amazingly fun, even on the hardest difficulty, if you're willing to invest the time to master its idiosyncrasies. For my builders, The Witcher 3's leveling and character customization systems could have used a bit more time on the design floor before going to launch. The game is brutally stingy with issuing out experience points for battles. This relegates players to forcing themselves through the main story quest if they want to acquire any decent amount of XP for leveling. This can be extremely frustrating for other players like me who'd rather be out exploring the open world and fighting challenging enemies to make themselves stronger. However, keep in mind that this problem feels much less severe on easier difficulties, and that's because it's much easier for us power fantasy fanatics to feel the progression of our skills in battle on easier settings. Witcher 3's skill tree is a builder's dream come true, save for one nasty fatal flaw. You can only choose 12 skills out of the over 70 skills you have access to develop. So it's not as bad as, say, Divinity 2's system where you only get a limited amount of XP, such that you can only level up one class of character. But even though you can level everything in The Witcher 3, you can't necessarily use every skill that you may want to use in battle because of this dynamic. On a positive note, you can switch out which 12 skills you're using at any given time, but this is still a hard pill to swallow. for heavy power fantasy fans. But despite this less than stellar leveling system, you'll still be able to find great joy in building Geralt in other ways. There are enjoyable side quests that yield great weapons and armor sets upon their completion. These quests and their resulting spoils really go a long way to add to the feeling of progression, while very nicely tying together rewarding exploration, combat, and storytelling. For my explorers, The Witcher 3 creates what I affectionately call the Shenmue effect. The Shenmue effect occurs when game designers masterfully craft the static and living parts of a game's world, such that I get the feeling that I'm actually there. Games like Shenmue and The Witcher 3 do this so well that I often forget the world around me while I'm playing. This type of immersion begs the player to explore their surroundings. I'm a huge explorer, and I love when RPGs get the exploration dynamics right. Very few RPGs get these dynamics as right as The Witcher 3 does. You see, great exploration depends upon game designers mastering the tender balance between risk and reward. The best designers entice players to explore the far reaches of the world by hiding rare, valuable, and powerful items, gear, and weapons in their nooks and crannies. Along with these rewards comes the risk of encountering enemies well above the player's play grade, lying in wait to destroy them, and their chances of acquiring the coveted loot. Further, as The Witcher 3 demonstrates, having the skill to take down these super enemies, even at lower levels, makes exploration that much more alluring. The Witcher 3 masters these concepts better than any other RPG I've ever played, and this is especially true when you consider that the game will allow you to kill an enemy up to 15 levels higher than you if you're willing to master the flow of the combat system and fight with a touch of patience and ingenuity. The only elements that can make The Witcher 3's exploration perfect are more XP for victorious battles, as we discussed earlier, and armor and weapons that do not require the player to be above a certain level to wield them. For my audiophiles, music and sound are monumentally important features in the video games that I love. Sound, more than any other element, helps me emotionally connect to the game world as I'm playing through it. The Witcher 3 doesn't have a dense soundtrack, but the music it does have very powerfully pulls the player into the world around them. I think few songs sell a game situation better than the voiced battle theme found while facing far superior foes and certain boss fights. In addition to the compelling soundtrack are almost perfectly performed voice acting and ambient nature sounds like the wind rustling through the breathing trees. The bottom line here is that The Witcher 3 soundtrack and its supporting audio is 100% amazing. For my visualists, finally, a masterpiece open world role-playing game that uses more on-screen colors than green, brown, and gray. I'm still amazed that CD Projekt Red was able to make a game this huge look this good on the PlayStation 4. And it's not just the pretty graphics that impress me. It's the fact that the world in Witcher 3 feels alive. It has a heartbeat and a swagger, illustrated perfectly through its character animations and the beautiful aesthetics of the game's locales. For my achievers and trophy hunters, completing 100% of The Witcher 3's available experience is enhanced by a trophy and achievement system that are as challenging as they are practical and enjoyable. At the time of this review, I'm actually pushing through my second play experience to pick up the trophies that I missed on my first play. I really appreciate how some of the trophies, like the enemy of my enemy and that is the evilest thing, actually serve to teach us better ways to fight our opponents. When you couple this with collection quests that actually have a purpose and a card minigame that's one of the most enjoyable minigames of all time, you have a completionist dream come true. In the end, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is not a perfect game, but despite some of its less desirable design choices and mechanics, it's still the best role-playing adventure I've ever played. The Witcher 3's living, breathing world is cold and dark, much like many of the products the RPG industry has turned out over the last few generations. But just as Geralt lives to bring a glimmer of hope to a dying world, The Witcher 3 breathes life into a genre that's been stagnant for too long. CD Projekt Red has blessed us with a masterpiece, and my only prayer is that other designers and developers were paying attention.